Hello trainees, it's my immense pleasure to have this privilege of online class to reach you all during this COVID-19 lockdown. Today I will be sharing with you my experience and knowledge on one of the important teaching skills, that is stimulus variation. But before that, let's know what is teaching skill. Well, teaching skill is an action or an activity which is repeated a number of times during our course of teaching. For example, while teaching lesson in the class, we explain many things by giving more information than what is already there in the text. So here explaining is one of the skills of teaching. Now one more example is the action of putting question to the learners. While having interaction or while teaching, we have a habit or we always used to ask question to our learners. So throwing question here and there is also a skill, and this skill is also very, very important to make our teaching effective. So this is all about teaching skill. Now we know what is this teaching skill. Now let's come to our target topic, that is stimulus variation, which is also another skill of our teaching. So our today's topic is stimulus variation. Stimulus variation. Now dear trainees, our today's topic is stimulus variation. Well, our chief aim in the class is to make the students or our learners having this interest or having a very deep impression in what we all are teaching or what we all are discussing. So to have this, we use various methods and technique. We use a lot of ways to get attention or to capture their attention. Now, in order to attract pupils, we may present various types of stimuli, and this will help us to motivate them to a great extent. So various stimuli such as, number one, we have body movement. We can have gesture. We can have changes and the speech pattern. We can have changes in the interaction style. We can have a pause. And finally, we can have changes in audio, visual, each. So for today, I'll be sharing or I'll be doing with only this 6 stimuli. This 6 stimuli is not all. There are a whole lot of many stimuli that we can have, but for today let me come up with only this 6 stimuli. Now let me come with this body movement. What is this body movement and how can this stimuli help us in our teaching process? Yes, excess of physical activities in the classroom is an undesirable thing. But again, without physical movement or activities, teacher is just like a stone idol. It brings boredom to the students. So this body movement is very, very essential. For example, standing in front of this writing board without moving around in the classroom, will obviously bring boredom in the class, or will make your teaching learning process a very dull one. So what we can do, how we can use this body movement is, we can just move around in the classroom. We can go at the back of the room, or we can even stand in the middle, or we can even go at the side, so that my presence in the classroom should be felt by all the students in the classroom. And we have seen teachers doing this in the classroom. So we have to bear in our mind that body movement has a great role in the teaching learning process. So dear trainees, please don't forget to have this body movement while having your class. It will help your students, and at the same time it will help you, in the long run. Now next, let me come to this gesture. Gesture again is nothing. It's all about having to use our hands or head. For example, facial gestures like smiling, raising eyebrows, raising hands, etc., etc. And this gesture also proved very helpful in making our classroom interesting. And more of this gesture is that of a signal of our eyes, right? And nodding hand signals, like to stop. If I want to stop someone, I can use my hands. Or the signal to continue something, or like the task or whatever is going in the classroom. And also the signal to make learners or students quiet in the classroom. Sometimes we don't have to speak, sometimes we don't have to make a voice, but only with the help of this gesture, we can take our class in a very effective way. So this gesture again is very, very important. Maybe knowingly or unknowingly, it's of a very great help to us. So dear trainees, gestures, an important stimuli or something that we have to have in our mind. Fine? Now next is changes in the speech pattern. Speech means what we all are doing in the class by using our this mouth or the voice that we are producing. But we need to bring a change in our this voice. So changes in the speech pattern means bringing fluctuation in the voice. You know what? The pupils or the students feel boredom with the speech at the same pitch. Why? Because if so, they get deviated from the lesson. They don't find the lesson interesting because of the same pitch that we have. So we need to bring changes in our speech. Sometimes high if it's required, sometimes low if there is a need of that. So by doing this, the teachers should bear in mind that fluctuation in the voice pattern makes the learners very interesting, and at the same time brings color and brings test in our teaching learning process. So again, I would ask all of you to have these changes where in the speech pattern, like fluctuation, high and low, when there is a need. But when it's required, it's up to you. It depends. You have to decide, you have to know where and when you want to bring this change. Right? And next is changes in the interaction style. Here again we are going to bring change, but where? First it's at speech pattern. Now here it's in the interaction style. Now, in interaction, what I mean is, classroom should not be monotonous. Interaction means while having, discussions or while talking with my students or with students, we have to, have this changes, like sometimes we need to have a little bit of strictness in the classroom so that we have systematic control of the students, and sometimes we have to have very warm or we have to have very friendly manners. It's required, but not always friendly, not always very strict. Why? Because changes is required, because there is individual difference in the classroom where students of different personalities are there. So according to these differences, we need to have these changes in the interaction style, which will help us, very effectively in our teaching learning process. Fine? So changes in the interaction style. When you interact with your students, please make sure there is changes. You don't have to be very, very unique, or you don't have to be very, stable at one style. You don't have to be unique in the sense that I'm a very strict teacher, or my way of dealing with my students is very strict, so I can't be very warm, or I can't be very friendly. This is a big no. Sometimes we have to be very friendly, and sometimes we need to be strict. A little bit strictness is also helpful in the long run. So changes in interaction style, it's very essential. Now next is pause. Pause means to stop for a while. We don't have to continue non-stop. We need to take a break in between. Let's see why we need to take a break in between. In the teaching learning process, there is a need of pause as and where the need arises. The teacher should use pause in his teaching process. It gives time to check, your teaching, like if the students are getting you, and on the other way around, the students get the time to raise question or to clear their doubts. If there is no pause, that means it's a one-sided, teaching process is going on in the classroom. Teaching learning process is a two-way traffic. One is teacher and the other is the student. So this pause will help to bring, the opportunities of this, two-sided matters. Means if there is a pause, the teacher can take this privilege or take this opportunity to check the students if they are really with you, right? And on the other way around, students can get a time to interrupt, because there is a pause to interrupt and to ask question or anything that there is need of. So this pause is again a blessing in the teaching learning process. Please don't forget, take pause. Maybe not always, but many times we have to have this pause. And next, the last one, I must say, last means for this class, and it's not last or the least. So here we have changes in the audio-visual aids. We all know the importance or the necessary of this audio-visual aids, how these aids help in the classroom, we all know. But we need to have changes in this also. Every time visual or every time audio is not going to help in a very effective way, or it's not going to bring any systematic way of teaching learning process. When we speak or when we explain things, in between, if there is a visual, it brings difference, and it brings variety. It brings more interest in that process. How? For example, look here. I think with example we can have clear of this. When I say, or when I tell my learners in the class that Jawaharlal Nehru is the first Prime Minister of our country, India, with this very saying, if I have a picture or a chart having a picture of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, with my seeing or with my voice, I'm bringing this visual aids alongside. So this will bring interest, my explanation, or my my very real thing that I really want to have from my learners will be having from that audio plus visual aids, right? So this is just an example. Many times we have this opportunity where there is a need of having this audio visual aids. So these changes in audio visual aids we have to have in our mind, because we have audio, we have visual aids, but having these two aids in their very own proper, way or proper manner is not enough. We have to know that changes, between these two is also required, right? So this 6 stimuli will help us to a great extent. And as I have said before also, this 6 stimuli is not the only stimuli that we have or that we can practice in the classroom. There are many more, but the 6 stimuli are also very, very essential and necessary, steps that we can have in our teaching learning process. Why? Because if we have all this, I'm sure we can motivate our learners to such a great extent that students would be waiting for our next class with anticipation, right? So mere teaching without having all this is wastage of time, because learners, they are also beings where they'll be looking forward for all these varieties. And if we teachers fail to have this in our mind, it would be a very sorry thing from our side. It's not fair at all without all this stimuli in the classroom. So that's all as of today. Thank you very much, trainees, for your time, for being with me. And lastly, please remain indoors, stay safe and save life. Please stay healthy. Good luck to you all. Thank you very much.